Hey guys, it's Ellen, and today I'm going to bring you my wrap up from the month of September. I think I did pretty well this month, seeing as I had a lot going on. I started a new job, and I had a really bad cold, and there were lots of things going on in my life, so I actually think that I did pretty well with my TBR pile, so let's just jump right in. The first book that I finished in this month was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and as you can see, I did a lot of, what is this called? Sticky noting. On the sides here, because there was a lot of moments in this that I just found the writing was really moving, or some passage was especially poignant, and so I wanted to go back to those parts and remember them. This book overall was really good. I think I gave it either a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 stars because it's just so beautifully written. This edition is actually blurbed by Neil Gaiman, not blurbed, it has like an introduction by Neil Gaiman, which is really cool. I'm going to be reading a lot of Neil Gaiman books this coming month, so that was a nice little intro to that. Yeah, it's this one, if you are not aware, it takes place in, it's a dystopian world where instead of firefighters putting out fires, they actually start fires in homes that are, the people who live there are accused of having books in their possession. And so this was actually a banned book for a while, so it's really cool to read a banned book and see sort of why it might not have been accepted in society at the time. I'm not sure what the time period was of when this was banned. It's just a really interesting perspective of how things could go if we you know, don't appreciate the things that we have, appreciate the literature and the stories and the knowledge that's passed from person to person via books and media and other forms of creativity, and instead just rely on less substantial pieces of work. The writing style was definitely different than anything I've encountered before. But it was definitely easy to get through. I really liked the narration style, and yeah, overall it was just a really good read, and also I just feel like I was getting into this piece of history that I might not have gotten into before, so this was really cool. This next book was kind of the book that put my TBR, kind of derailed it, because I picked this one up at the beginning of the month. You probably can guess what it is. Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I found this one at Costco for $11, something like that. It was crazy, and so they had the whole series, and so I got the rest of the series in hardback, and because I didn't own it before, and then I got this book here, and it took up most of my time. I did read it pretty quickly, seeing as it's a very long book, but it's yeah, it took up a good amount of my time during the month for reading. So this book, if you don't know, is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series. There's also a little book of novellas that is actually quite important to this story. So if you are reading this series and you're not sure whether or not to read The Assassin's Blade, then you definitely should read that before reading this book, because a lot of the characters in here are introduced in that book, and I think Sarah J. Maas sort of, not assumes, but she kind of thinks you probably have read that book before going into this one. And you can get by if you haven't read that, but I think that it gives more substance to the story, and it was useful to me. So, yeah, and of course, I love this book so much. This is one of my favorite series of all time. It is just so good. I mean, there are assassins, there's magic. As the series goes on, it just gets more thrilling, and you get captivated by this world. Sorry if this camera angle is a little bit different. My camera ran out of space, and so I'm continuing on a different camera. Anyway, talking about Queen of Shadows, this is one of my favorite series of all time. Selena Sarathian is a really kick-ass character. She has this amazing character development throughout the series, and especially in this book, I find that she was like at her most, like, I would describe her as fiercely loyal, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's one of her character traits that is just so strong throughout the series. And yeah, she's just really entertaining, really cool. I would want to be her friend, but I think maybe I'd be a little scared of her, and I don't think I'm cool enough to be her friend, so. But yeah, this book I gave 5 out of 5 stars because it is awesome, and you should definitely read it if you have not. The next book I read was unfortunately not quite as good as the last book, which is actually would be hard to do because it's such a great book, but anyway. I read Cut Both Ways by Carrie Mesrobian. This one was extremely disappointing. I really thought going into this that it was going to be a sort of coming-of-age story, discovering oneself, one's sexuality, and sexual preferences, and that would be a really cool story, but that's not really what it was. And it's basically about this main character. What's his name again? Will. So it's about this character named Will, and he has feelings for his best friend, who is a male, but he also has feelings for this girl. And you think going in that he's gonna like sort of have this like revelation and really, you know, feel that he cares about these two individual people really strongly, but it never really falls into that category. He always just kind of sees these people as sexual beings. He doesn't see them as people, it seems like. And that really bothered me. It also bothered me that he distanced himself fully from the LGBTQIA community by basically saying some really inappropriate and problematic things about that community. And I really didn't like how his character was sort of like, I am not gay, I don't look like this guy, I don't act like this person over there, I can't be gay. And there was just some really big stereotypes and overarching things that were quite problematic about that. And then the other thing that really bothered me was the ending was not even an ending. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I basically just turned to the page and I thought that maybe it had been, like, ripped out or something. There's no resolution whatsoever, and the story basically just went nowhere. So I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars, and I think that was generous. It might even be a 1.5. The writing was okay. Oh, another thing about this book is that it reminded me a lot, and not in a great way, of Catcher in the Rye. And I feel like the author was trying to go for that as she was writing, like kind of connecting the coming of age of a young man sort of narrative, and she even used some of the same language. Another line he says is like they were shooting the shit, and like things that nobody really says anymore but are very reminiscent of Catcher in the Rye. And if you have watched my videos before, you know I'm not a fan of that book or the writing style in that book, and so that was not an aspect that I enjoyed. Overall, just I was fully disappointed in this one. Yeah, not so good. Next, I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and I loved this book. It was so good, and it was so, I feel like it had so many important themes to it, and it was so well written, and not in a preachy sort of way. I just thought that it gave a really interesting perspective into the life of an African-American individual. Actually, a couple individuals are in this story, and their childhood and what it was like at this time period. I think it was 1941. Yeah, 1941, living in a sort of depressed area, and how it was for those people to be living in this situation. Sort of interactions between individuals of color and individuals who identify as Caucasian, and it was just so beautiful. And of course, Toni Morrison, it's not surprising. She's got a beautiful writing style. Her language is fantastic. Her metaphors and just everything about it was great. I would have put so many more tabs in here, but I was reading it from a library copy at the time, and so I didn't tab it. But there were a lot of points where I could just, you know, her words were just so beautiful. I would love to go back and read them again. I might just read the whole book again. We'll see. But yeah, this one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. The 5th and final book that I read in September, I actually finished it on October 1st, I think. So, but I'm throwing it in here because I read most of it in September, is The Wicked Will Rise, and this is by Danielle Paige. It is the 2nd book in the Dorothy Must Die series. I don't know how many books there are going to be, but it's basically a retelling of, I guess it takes place after The Wizard of Oz, and sort of Dorothy is not what she seems, and this is a continuation of the story of Amy Gum, who has also been taken into Oz in a similar manner to Dorothy, and she is given the task of trying to fix a lot of the things that are wrong in Oz. And this one was extremely action-packed, just like the first one, maybe even more so. And I loved the setting here. I mean, of course, Oz is just really interesting in general, but the descriptions of places that weren't in the original Oz and the things that Danielle Paige came up with on her own, I think were just really, really cool. I mean, namely the rainbow I don't know, the Sea of Rainbows or whatever it is, that place. I thought that was so, so cool, and like the place where the wingless ones live up in the trees. I was just like really having a great time reading this because it just put me in this world and I loved it there. So I think I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was really enjoyable. Okay guys, that is it for what I read in the month of September. Let me know what you guys read in the month of September. I would love to hear about it. I hope you're having an awesome fall. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one.